DGOGAN session, Dr. Vinky Rugwani sir, respected President NOGS Dr. Vaidehi Marathi Madam, Honorable Secretary Dr. Rajesi Sengupta Ma'am, respected faculty for today's session Dr. Anuradha Shrikande, Dr. Vidya Shrikande Madam, respected chairpersons Dr. Manorama Purwar Ma'am and Dr. Neelam Punyani, and all the DGites. I, Dr. Swati Sada, welcome you all for our today's DGOGAN session, which is on antenatal diagnosis of fetal hemoglobinopathies. Friends, as we all know that we still find a huge gap between the services which are available for the diagnosis and the number of patients we see of thalassemia and sickle cell anemia. And somewhere we need to bridge the gap together. So I think we have a very eminent faculty, prominent faculty today, Dr. Vidya Shrikande Madam, who has worked immensely in this field, and she is going to give us the tips on how we can decrease the cases of hemoglobinopathies basically, and how to antenatally diagnose them. So we welcome you, ma'am, Anuradha ma'am. We are fortunate that today we have Dr. Vinky Rugwani sir with us as chief guest. So we welcome you.
Thank you.
And now I would like to invite our President NOGS, Dr. Vaidehi Marathi Madam, for her welcome address.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Swati. Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Respected Chief Guest, Dr. Rugwani sir. Today's esteemed faculty, Dr. Vidya Shrikande ma'am. Respected chairpersons of the day, Dr. Purva ma'am and Dr. Punyani ma'am. Respected seniors, dear friends, boys and girls. I welcome you all once again to the VR world. That is Vaidehi Rajasi's virtual to reality world. This is the unique digital space where we at NOGS present a weekly extravagant feast of academic and non-academic bonanza. Friends, NOGS has been the only society to conduct these standalone ongoing CMEs week after week with very practical, clinically important, basic topics, which is the USP of our CMEs, and that is why we have named these CMEs DGOGAN. By now, all of you know that we've been conducting these DGOGANs under 3 modules: the surgical skill enhancing module, guidelines and protocols module, and soft skill development training modules. And all our previous sessions have been super successful with a large audience attending from all over India as well as from abroad. Today, we are very fortunate to have with us Dr. Vinky Rugwani sir as the chief guest. And we are really honored, sir, as sir has been doing a phenomenal work for thalassemia patients. Thank you so much, sir, for accepting our invitation today.
Thank you.
In our guidelines and protocol module today, which is on a very important and challenging issue all of us face in our clinical practice, hemoglobinopathies. The sad part is even now, babies with hemoglobinopathies are born, which can actually be prevented. And it's time we ask ourselves, are we doing enough? A little bit goes a long way. Today we have amongst us a very distinguished speaker, a name to reckon with in this field, Dr. Vidya, alias Dr. Anuradha Shrikande. She has been doing tremendous work in this field and she's very passionate about it. And hence, even after retirement, she continues to work tirelessly to help create awareness in this field. Thanks a lot, Dr. Vidya ma'am. We are really honored to have you with us as the speaker today. So without much ado, I welcome Dr. Rugwani sir and Dr. Shrikande ma'am. Thank them profusely for accepting our invitation. And dear doctors, welcome to this action-packed virtual learning platform yet again. Together, let's keep rocking the VR world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much for the insight. Now, before going ahead, I would like to introduce our chief guest for today, Dr. Vinky Rugwani sir. Sir is a consultant pediatrician, director of Rugwani Child Care Center and Hospital. But let me request everyone here to put your hands together for the immense work he is doing for the patients of thalassemia and sickle cell anemia. And he's the director of Thalassemia and Sickle Cell Center, Nagpur Center, which provides free treatment to these patients. We all know that these patients, they need frequent admissions to the hospital and blood transfusions. And the treatment is done for the free of cost at this center. So we are really very proud of you having here in Nagpur such a center, and you are really working so hugely for this. I congratulate you, sir, for this. And also, like I said, he has dedicated his work to the thalassemia patients. So we welcome you, sir. And sir, I would like to request you. I would like to request you to kindly guide us on this matter today.
Thank you so much. In the beginning, I feel that I am fortunate to be a part of such a wonderful CME, a topic which is very close to me. Of course, we all are fortunate to have a stalwarts in between us, the stalwarts like Kate sir, because I was not expecting him, but he is with us, and also Shrikhande madam. She had been doing a wonderful job since so many years. So really, it's a good thing that this NOGS has taken a very good initiative today. Special mention I would like to mention about Dr. Vaidehi, who is president of this association, and Dr. Rajasvi. I think she is not here today, na? She has not joined. So because I know that NOGS has been working quite well in the past. Being a vice president of Maharashtra Medical Council, I have been given the responsibility of giving credit hours to all CMEs. And I know which organization is doing maximum number of CMEs and which organization is very active. So NOGS is definitely doing a wonderful job. So congratulations for that to NOGS also. Now,
thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. So coming to today's topic, I think if somebody has seen the patient of thalassemia and sickle cell disease, one who has seen this patient will never neglect whatever today Madam Shrikhande is going to tell you. I think before going, I'm going to speak for 2-3 minutes more, but before that, I would like to you all see, please, short video of 1.5 minutes. Huh? I'll share that video to you.
Sure, sir, please.
This is the time.
सर वॉल्यूम नहीं है. सर वॉल्यूम नहीं है वीडियो में, ऑडियो नहीं आ रहा है सर.
Sir, there's no volume. Can't hear anything.
ऑडियो है ही नहीं सर, वीडियो अच्छा दिख रहा है, ऑडियो नहीं दिख रहा है और सुनाई दे रहा है.
अच्छा, there was some problem of audio or what?
But video was well seen, sir.
Okay. Anyway, so you just saw the sufferings of the patients of thalassemia and sickle cell disease. Actually, you know, thalassemia is a disease in which the patient, we have to give transfusion in the beginning every monthly. And as the age progresses, they need transfusion in every 15 days also. And even 2 units of blood in every 15 days. Also, they have to take all medicines which are quite costly. They have to undergo so many of investigations. As far as sickle cell disease is concerned, we know that these patients get such a severe pain that they need to be admitted in the hospital so frequently. So we can understand if there is one child or a patient in a family, we can understand the agony, we can understand the problems with the family must be facing, the mental tension and also the financial problems this family might be going undergo. So ultimately, we all know that these two diseases are preventable diseases, and it is 100% in our hand that this particular child should not get birth. So this is how, because this is one of the diseases. We know polio is a preventable. The government started this whole project of polio prevention. They started Do Boond with all organizations, even so everybody took part in that, all organizations, social workers, governmental agencies. But for thalassemia and sickle cell, there is a need of awareness. I'm sure that, I don't know how many members are there in your NOGS, maybe 200 or 300, Vedai madam? How many are there?
450.
456. If these 456 members, if you ask them a question, do you know how to prevent thalassemia and sickle cell disease? I think not more than 50% will be able to answer that question. So that means even the obstetricians are not knowing the fact, they are not aware of the prevention methods. So definitely we need to reach to the people through this awareness campaign. This will not only, it's a governmental work, it involves the social workers, it involves all the associations, and especially the obstetricians. They play a very, very major role, because before marriage, of course, yes, the prevention, Srikhande madam is going to tell you everything about that, what can be done, what we should do before marriage. But once, suppose the couple is married, both husband and wife, both are sickle cell trait or thalassemia minor, there are ways by means of which we can prevent this hemoglobinopathy disease in their children. So there are ways. So we must take this message today that all obstetricians and gynecologists, they should be made aware of this particular hemoglobinopathy and its prevention, because we can save so many lives by doing this. And I would like to request Dr. Vaidehi here that you should take one project of this also. You can,
yes, sir, sure.
Awareness campaigning. We will help you out in that, sure, sir, campaigning. Another thing is this particular test, Srikhande madam is going to tell you about this particular test, what test we need to do for prevention. One of the tests is HPLC, which is costlier one, but through associations and the societies, it is done at a very meager rates, in a very low cost. Even our association, our organization at our center is doing it at a very low cost and even free at few camps. So you can take use of all these organizations, associations, and all the projects which are coming for these hemoglobinopathies. I think Srikhande madam, she has been doing work for sickle cell disease since long, and I am seeing her doing this work almost since last 20 years. So we all are really fortunate to have her with today, and I'm very sure that we all will get something which will definitely change our minds as far as the thalassemia and sickle cell disease is concerned. I thanks once again to the NOGS, especially the president and all office bearers for inviting me. And at last, Kate sir is also with us. So I'm very happy to see him also today, because at this age also he has joined in this CME. So thank you so much, Kate sir. And I once again thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Truly, whatever pictures you have shown, the video which you have shown is really very painful, and it's painful to see these patients undergo so much suffering. And like you said, prevention is only probably the way to eradicate this disease. and we must definitely work out on this. If we can eradicate polio, this can definitely be done, because this is only prevention, what we have to prevent it. So we should definitely work on it, sir. So thank you very much for the message, and will assure you that we'll take over this project also of eradicating thalassemias and sickle cell. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Now I would like to invite our chairpersons for today's session. The first chairperson is Dr. Manorama Purwar. Ma'am, are you there?
Yes, she has logged in already.
Yeah, she's logged in, but her video is off. Manorama Purva, ma'am, we all know she's a very senior, one of our members, and I call her as grand teacher, because she's the teacher of our teachers and a very great academician and a very kind at heart. I welcome you, ma'am, for our today's session. Our second chairperson for today is Dr. Neelam Punyani, ma'am, who's an infertility specialist and director of Punyani Hospital. Also has a 3D, 4D color ultrasonography center. And I would like to mention here that she has been working for the patients of thalassemia and sickle cell anemia for the antenatal invasive diagnosis, prenatal diagnosis, since last almost 20 years. And she's been working with Vidya Shikhande madam since last 20 years. It's a really incredible job, Neelam ma'am. So we welcome you here. Here also, I would like to recognize the presence of Dr. Punyani sir. Ma'am, sir, hai kya?
Dr. Swati, I am sorry.
Yes,
I've forgotten to take the name of Punyani madam.
Yes, sir.
I would like to mention Punyani sir's name over here.
Yes.
He was a person who actually started working for thalassemia patients in our city.
So true. So I
we got many things
is
from
there
him.
with us today, and would like to mention that even sir and madam together, Punyani sir and madam together, have been working for this patient, and they provide the treatment at very low cost. So it's really creditable, ma'am. We welcome you here. And now I would like to hand over the floor to other chairpersons. Over to you, Neelam Punyani, ma'am. Ma'am, you can unmute. Ma'am, unmute kar lijiye.
Good afternoon, Vidya Madam, Purwar Madam, my friends, colleagues, and my seniors. It's my great pleasure to introduce Madam Vidya Shikhande, ex-Dean of IGMC Nagpur, my armamentarium. I'm really thankful to NOGS and our President, Dr. Vaidehi Marathe and Swati, who has given an opportunity to chair this session. The day I received the call from Swati and Vaidehi Madam for chairing the session, I was literally lost in old nostalgic memories of 2004 onwards, when we were working together with Madam day and night. Madam was an organizing secretary for the International Sickle Cell Disease Conferences of 2004, 2006, and 2010, which were held in IGMC. Myself and Dr. Upendra Punyani used to rush to Madam's chamber very often in the afternoon from our busy OPDs for helping her in these mega events. Madam is a project director of Regional Hemoglobinopathy Detection and Management Center, IGMC Nagpur, since last 20 years. Madam is a president of Sickle Cell Association of Nagpur, commonly called as SCAN Center, since 2004 onwards. Madam is a member of Sickle Cell Disease International Organization and Global Network. She has presented many papers on international and international platforms. She is the author of chapter of HPLC in diagnosis of sickle cell disease and PCR. She is author of booklets which are sponsored by UNFPA and NRHM. Not only that, Madam is the author of almost 23 research articles in national and international journals. She is a teaching faculty for medical technicians, counselors, and sickle cell coordinators for Public Health Department almost since last 18 to 20 years. Madam is the organizing secretary of state-level workshop on laboratory diagnosis of sickle cell disease, hands-on training, and PCR hands-on training for prenatal diagnosis of sickle cell disease. Madam, I still remember the days when we have conducted the workshops for amniocentesis in the radiology department of IGMC with Dr. Purnima Satoskar from Mumbai in 2004 onwards. The very important feather in her cap is that many strategies were planned and policy decisions were taken by government of Maharashtra during her tenure. Following are few examples of those strategies. there was establishment of regional hemoglobinopathy detection and management center at IGMC Nagpur. That's a very big credit to her. Free investigation, medicines and blood for sickle cell disease patients in the state all over Maharashtra. Then provision of free travel to the patient either by bus or train. Additional 30 minutes are given for 10th and 12th year students who are appearing for the exams and suffering from sickle cell disease. She has made mandatory screening for persons in the age group of 1 to 30 and all pregnant mothers. Free prenatal diagnostic facility to sickle cell mother. Observation of sickle cell week every year for mass education and public awareness program. And these mass education training is very close to Madam's heart. Every year we are running a stall at Durga Pradarshni Dhantoli ground during Navratras. And here this stall is conducting free sickling tests for the patients. And I always go with many of the staff and patients to get the sickling test done free at this counter. Then inclusion of sickle cell disease in disability category. This is again very important for the patients. Here I present to you Madam Vidya Srikhande. Her name itself, Vidya Anuradha, itself tells about her contribution and her revolutionary and remarkable work for hemoglobinopathy patients. Madam had literally devoted all her medical career to serve these needy patients. Apart from sickle cell, all of us know that beta thalassemia is also one of the very most common inherited single gene recessive disorder in Indian subcontinent. Almost 10,000 new patients of beta thalassemia are born every year in India, with a huge burden on the family, medical professionals, and the country resources as well. And hence, early detection, early suspicion, early prenatal diagnosis can reduce this burden. Screening methods are really cheap and very freely available almost in all the cities nowadays. These screening methods are very reasonable. The essential need is only awareness among the doctors as well as the patients to advise them to go for the testings. Here I like to say, as soon as any ANC patient comes in the OPD for the booking, we should always see CBC very seriously, not only the hemoglobin percentage. Because with CBC only we can suspect these diseases. If the MCV is less than 27 and MCH less than 77, start thinking in terms of something wrong with the hemoglobinopathy and advise them to go for hemoglobin electrophoresis. And not only electrophoresis, if they diagnose abnormal hemoglobin like fetal F, fetal S, fetal A2 in hemoglobin electrophoresis, immediately ask them to do quantification of these hemoglobins. Because if hemoglobin A2 is more than 3.5, then only we call this patient is suffering from thalassemia trait. And
I think there is some signal problem. I think we can request Vidya Anuradha ma'am to start her lecture. I think we have lost her network.
Over to Vidya
This
ma'am.
screen is not being shared right now. Madam is not going to screen share. She's going to just give a lecture.
Okay, so I'll put up.
Just request ma'am to start the lecture.
Yes, Vidya ma'am, over to you. We're not able to connect with Neelam ma'am as of now. So over to you for the lecture. Vidya ma'am, are you there? Acha, Neelam, you'll have to unmute.
Hello, Swati.
Ji, ma'am.
Can you listen?
Yeah.
Neelam ma'am, we are requesting Vidya ma'am to start her lecture. Neelam ma'am, we are requesting Vidya ma'am to start the lecture because she has to leave at 5:30.
Yes, very well. That was the last line. I will be failing in my duty if I won't mention her dedicated work and contribution from Madam. So now I request Madam to start her talk.
What do you do? So, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much, Vaidehi, and thank you, Swati and Neelam, Madam Purvar. Thank you so much for inviting me today for this very important webinar on sickle cell disease, which is very close to my heart. Thank you so much for that very generous introduction, Neelam. And we all have been working for this particular cause, including you, Dr. Punyani. He happens to be the vice president of our association as well. So Dr. Kate is with us, Dr. Rugwani is with us, and we have all the stalwarts who have been working on sickle cell disease and thalassemias in Nagpur region for last so many years. Why are we working on sickle cell disease and thalassemias? Is for the simple reason, for all those from different parts of the country, I would like to tell you that Central India is supposed to be the hub for sickle cell disease. I will not waste any more time and I will go directly to the subject. So Central Asian haplotype is well known. Literature mentions about Central Indian haplotype. And the characteristic of this Asian haplotype is that it has very high fetal hemoglobin. And that is how we Indians are known, that our sickle cell disease is very high in fetal hemoglobin. The newer treatment modalities nowadays are all revolving around producing excess of fetal hemoglobin by these various pharmacologic drugs, as well as in gene editing. So the crux is that we must have a very high level of fetal hemoglobin in our patients. And if we have high level of fetal hemoglobin, then naturally it is going to prevent all the complications which we see regularly with these patients, which means that sickle cell disease is a clinically important disease because it shows us a variety of symptoms, some of which may lead to death, especially so in children, especially so in newborn infants. And that is the reason why we are advocating repeatedly that we must go ahead with newborn screening, we must go ahead with marriageable youth screening, and we must go ahead with pregnant mother screening, because in any case, we want to prevent this disease. We find this disease in two forms. One is a full-blown clinically significant sickle cell disease patient who comes to us with joint pain, splenomegaly, jaundice, repeated infections, and variety of crises, topping among them, which leads to mortality and morbidity, splenic sequestration, acute chest pain, which are life-threatening complications, a plastic crisis because of parvovirus infection, so on and so forth. And on the other hand, you have sickle cell trait, which is a carrier condition, a heterozygous state, where only the gene is transferred from one of the parents. If it is transferred from both the parents, then you get a full-blown disease patient. If it is transferred from only one parent, then you are a trait or a heterozygous patient. What is the difference between the two, and why are we, even after the asymptomatic sickle cell carriers, we want to detect them? They are asymptomatic, they are silent, but at the same time, they play a very important role in transmitting the disease to the next generation. Symptomatic patients, in any case, they are going to report to the hospitals, whether government or private setup, they are going to get treated. As we all know, sickle cell disease is a hereditary disorder. What we are offering to the patient right now is only symptomatic treatment. At present, there is no permanent cure for this particular disease. And therefore, unfortunately, the patient as well as the families, as Dr. Rugwani has already said, has to undergo that mental as well as financial problem all throughout their life. The patient is born with sickle cell disease and thalassemia, and he is going to die with sickle cell disease or thalassemia unless and until we have permanent cure which is affordable to each and every patient attending whether government setup or private setup, either bone marrow transplantation or gene editing therapy. These are the only permanent cure for sickle cell disease patients right now. Otherwise, what we are offering them is just a symptomatic treatment. As we have said, that these are patients, whether it is thalassemia, which is a transfusion-dependent anemia, or whether it is sickle cell disease patients. These patients depend on blood transfusion, they depend upon antibiotic therapy, they depend upon fluid replacement, pain management, and correction of acidosis, so on and so forth, and supplementation of folic acid. These are characterized as hemolytic anemias because there is excessive destruction of the red blood cells. In sickle cell disease, it is because the cells, they change their shape and our body does not recognize as our own cells, as a result of which spleen destroys all these cells. On the other hand, thalassemia is a condition where one of the globin chains is produced at a very lower quantity. So one is a qualitative defect, another is a quantitative defect, and ultimately your red blood cells, they get destroyed. And so patient comes to us with severe anemia if it is thalassemia, and then other symptomatology complex if it is associated with sickle cell disease, and we are offering them symptomatic treatment. Government of Maharashtra has started with this sickle cell disease control program from 2001. And we have been working on this particular subject for last 22 years. And then last month itself, and I had a discussion with Vaidehi, and this is how she very promptly accepted our request that we must go ahead with some awareness campaign again. There was a couple. The lady was 32 years old. She came with a 7-year-old boy. And then she told us that she was pregnant 52 weeks, over 20 weeks. And then the purpose of her coming to us was that she wanted prenatal diagnosis for this second child. What do we do? And what is this solution for us? Even after 22 years of working very hard, both in government as well as in private sector, we have a couple here who has a 7-year-old boy who is SS. He is a known case of SS, which is born, which is suffering. And just because the first child was suffering at the age of 3 years, this couple went to medical hospital to get admitted. And once that child was admitted, then only this child was diagnosed as a case of sickle cell disease. And then subsequently, the mother and father were diagnosed as carriers of sickle cell disease. That was when the child was 3 years old. That means about 4 years back. So 4 years back, even after working for 22 years, this was the situation that a child is born where father and mother don't know what is their sickle cell status. And even then they give birth to a sickle cell disease child. Even after this, even after undergoing so much of problem, even after facing the mental pressure and the financial pressure of taking care of this child with frequent vascular crisis for more than 3 or 4 times a year, this lady is now present for the second time. And then she comes to us for more than 22 weeks. And then she says that I want to get prenatal diagnosis for this particular child. So who is to be blamed? We don't have any solution for this lady now. And what we have to tell her is that we are sorry and you will have to give birth to this child again. Even though this is a preventable cause, which Dr. Rugwani has said, which every one of us know, we don't have any solution even after working for 22 years on this topic. The very first meeting that we had after we got this government GR from Government of Maharashtra, our request to our then late Professor Taide was that we must have a multidisciplinary approach to tackle this problem. It is not only the laboratory personnel who are going to treat or find out what is the problem in sickle cell disease patients, but we must involve pediatrician, physician, gynae obstetrician, surgical person, orthopedician, a person from preventive and social department, a statistician, unless and until we have a team of all these doctors, we cannot tackle sickle cell disease cases, neither we can tackle thalassemia cases. Because it is not only these symptoms, but then ultimately, because of the comprehensive healthcare that has improved over the years, these patients are now attending puberty, they go to adulthood, and when they enter into adulthood, they have chronic organ damage and other complications. So we need to have a surgeon, we need to have an orthopedician who is ready to tackle all these problems. If these ladies, they are attending reproductive age, then our gynecologists and obstetricians must be aware how to tackle a full-blown case of sickle cell disease with pregnancy, how to tackle a full-blown case of sickle cell disease with eclampsia, pre-eclampsia, how to tackle and give prenatal diagnosis to these SS patients, and how to give her a safe delivery and still have her a child which is not of low birth weight. So we must all be aware of what is happening. Unless and until we do that, we are not in a position to give a satisfactory answer to these parents who are coming to us for help for their children which are born or which are unborn. As we all know that Central India, the gene frequency varies somewhere between 8% to 15 to 16% among different ethnic groups. With a population of more than 40 lakhs in Nagpur and a variety of ethnic groups which are present in Nagpur, this is especially seen in certain pockets and in certain ethnic groups with a very high frequency. It is because of the stigma that is attached with sickle cell disease. People are even now not ready to disclose their sickle cell status, especially for females. And as a result of which, majority of these females, they undergo marriage ceremony without even knowing the status or disclosing the status of their own sickle cell thalassemic status, or without knowing the sickle or thalassemic status of their fiancé or their prospective husband. As a result of which, even now, when they come for the first time to the ANC clinic, it is only then that they come to know, or they disclose their sickle cell state than to offer them any concrete or substantial help. Now, we all know that about 50% of the babies that are born in India, it is India and Nigeria and DR Congo, this particular birth of sickle cell babies, whether AS or SS type, it is 50% of the global burden. So these are the three countries, that is India, Nigeria, and DR Congo, which are producing maximum number of sickle cell disease babies, whether carriers or whether they are full-blown sickle cell disease patients. What does it mean? That even now, there is lack of awareness amongst the parents, there is lack of awareness among the medical fraternity, there is lack of awareness amongst the paramedical staff and a society at large. We just cannot leave society at large, because they are the ones who are putting a lot of pressure on these patients of not disclosing their sickle cell or thalassemic status to the prospective persons. What can we now offer to this lady? What is the solution now for this particular lady? What can we tell her? Now she is going to give birth to another child. We never know whether she is going to have a SS child again. But then what is that we can tell her? Can we give some hope at least to this particular patient? We can tell her, we can counsel her, we can test we know that her husband is a sickle cell carrier. So both of them are carriers, and there is 25%.
I think madam is facing some network issue. I think she got locked out because of network. She, I think, would join in quickly. Yeah, she's. I'll just make a call to her. Till then, Dr. Kate sir, तुमचे काही remarks आम्हाला आवडतील ऐकायला या विषयावरती. I welcome you today on behalf of our Nagpur Obstetric Gynec Society. She's back. विद्या मॅडम अनम्यूट करा,
Yeah.
तुम्ही लॉग आउट झाल्या होत्या.
Yes, so L-glutamine, which is acting against the oxidant stress, voxelotor, which is an anti-sickling agent. Then we have very new drug, that is crizanlizumab, which Novartis has come out with. And this is the drug of choice, which acts against the selecting molecule. And all these methodologies, all these pharmacologic agents, they are going to help the sickle cell disease patients. Now, when we are talking about all these drugs, we know for sure that these are the agents which are basically targeting the adhesion molecules, which are preventing the polymerization, which are acting on the antioxidant stress, and which are the ones which are helping the red blood cells to regenerate. So we have these drugs in the market. Some of them are in the experimental stage. Some of them are FDA approved. Some of them have already started there in the UK and USA. And so there is a great hope for all these patients. And Novartis in India is again going to have these new drugs in the Indian market soon. So maybe this child who is born, and if unfortunately he is an SS child, then maybe he can have these drugs and have a fruitful quality life. Hydroxyurea has been in use. People are put, whether symptomatic or not, but then as soon as the child is born, he undergoes comprehensive healthcare plan. And then patients, they are put on hydroxyurea once they attain a certain age. And hydroxyurea increases fetal hemoglobin. And then it is found to be effective in preventing the infections, in preventing the pain crisis, and in preventing repeated requirement of the blood transfusions in this particular group of patients. Hydroxyurea is an anti-cancer drug and it has complications, and we need to tackle those complications, and in those situations the drug has to be stopped. Okay. Then we come to case number 2. Now this is a 22-year female. Her mother is a known case of sickle cell disease, but she is asymptomatic, and therefore none of the family members had been tested because the mother doesn't have any symptoms. But during her pregnancy, she was detected to have sickle cell disease. And that's how the mother knows that she is a case of sickle cell disease. This 21-year female, naturally, she is not symptomatic, and so she doesn't know what is her status. It was during one of those marriageable youth screening programs that we detected that this particular girl is a solubility positive. Once she knows through the technician that your report is positive, she never turns up for testing for further confirmation of the test and the result, and so she is vanished from the scene. Now we have a case, this index case, who is solubility positive. Solubility is a screening test which has been done for diagnosis of sickle cell disease and not for thalassemia. Solubility test is not being done for detection of thalassemia. There are other tests for thalassemias. A2 estimation is the most important test which we usually do, or you can do the RBC indices for diagnosis of sickle cell for thalassemia. So this lady now gets married. She is pregnant and she comes to the ANC clinic. The very first thing what we do and what we ask this lady is that and the investigations during the antenatal checkup that we do is naturally screening test for sickle cell disease and some confirmatory test for the confirmation of the diagnosis. Thanks to Government of Maharashtra and efforts and our efforts that all government hospitals, it has become mandatory that any patient who comes to the hospital in an age group of 0 to 30, she must get their sickle testing done irrespective of the clinical symptomatology with which they report to the hospital. So all the patients coming to government hospitals, they are getting tested. Now, whether all the ladies who are attending the gynecologists and obstetricians for the very first time with a history of amenorrhea, whether all of them get tested for sickle cell disease or not. That is a big question. Even now, there are some centers, some setups where sickling test is, or a test for diagnosis of sickle cell disease is being not offered. If offered, and if the lady is found to be positive, then husbands are not tested. Even in a city like Nagpur, even where we are working for last 22 years, even we don't find husbands getting tested for this particular disease if the wife turns out to be positive. What is the importance of this is that if wife turns out to be carrier, which this 21-year-old friend of ours is, she knows her mother is SS, she is sickle cell carrier, she is pregnant, and now we must have her husband's testing done as well, because if the husband turns out to be a carrier, then there is 25% chance in the next pregnancy that this girl will produce a sickle cell disease child, which in any case we do not want. And that is the reason a take-home message here is that if a girl comes to you for the first time in the ANC clinic, and if she is pregnant in first trimester, get her testing done, get her screening test done, get her confirmatory test done. Screening test is not only important. Screening test gives you only whether an indication only whether that particular patient has sickle hemoglobin or not. You have to go ahead and do a confirmatory test, which is going to tell you whether she is a deceased person or whether she is a carrier. And at the same time, we must know whether her husband is also a carrier or not. When this is complete, then only the antenatal checkup for that lady and for her husband is complete, and then only and hereafter only that lady should be advised to go ahead with the pregnancy. If both are sickle cell carriers, in that case, this particular lady, if she is in the first trimester of pregnancy, she has to be advised prenatal diagnosis. Chorion villus sampling can be done up to 12 to 14 weeks of pregnancy, and this is the ideal time when she would undergo chorion villus sampling testing. This has to be done by a trained gynecologist and an obstetrician, which is registered under the PCPNDT Act. The ultrasound machine has to be registered, your setup has to be registered and known, and then only you can go ahead with prenatal diagnosis. This is not sex determination. Patient must be told about this, and then this lady must know what is the test that is being done, what will be done with this DNA sample of her baby, in how much time the result would be available, what should you do after the result if the test comes out to be positive, and after the test comes out to be positive, it is only then you can advise this couple to undergo medical termination of pregnancy. This is medical termination of pregnancy, and we are just helping her in that decision making. We cannot force her to undergo prenatal diagnosis and subsequent medical termination of pregnancy if she is not willing to do that. There are some mothers who come to us in the OPD and tell us that even though my first child is SS, he doesn't have any symptoms. He is not admitted, he is not hospitalized anytime so far, and he has attained 10 years of age, he has crossed 5 years of age, and so he is not symptomatic, so we will not undergo medical termination of pregnancy. In that situation, we cannot force this couple to undergo chorion villus sampling, nor we can advocate that you undergo medical termination of pregnancy. So it is their choice. We are only helping them in taking a decision. Okay. So this is how prenatal diagnosis is done. If there are facilities available, then the chorion villus sample is being sent. PCR is done. In the PCR, you get information whether the child is having SS disease or not. If he is SS, then we undergo medical termination of pregnancy. It is as safe as any other method. There are only 1 to 2% chances that she may abort. But then otherwise 98% of the times this particular OPD procedure, when she can go home in 2 hours, is very safe, and we should advocate for this particular test. Instead of giving rest of the information, instead of giving her information about bone marrow transplantation, instead of giving repeatedly hammering about gene editing therapy, why not have her about prenatal diagnosis to these ladies? It should be done all the time. All my request to all the gynecologists and obstetricians is that please put up a poster in your clinic which says that go ahead for prenatal diagnosis if you are suspecting hemoglobinopathy in your child, or if you are a carrier of any of the hemoglobinopathies. There should be a big poster in your waiting room which says that go ahead with prenatal diagnosis, it is safe. And fortunately for us, before I could retire, I could get this test free of cost for all our patients. So all patients who attend our OPDs in the government hospitals, prenatal diagnosis is being done free of cost for them. So this is as far as a lady comes to us for the first time for prenatal diagnosis in her ANC period. I have here case 3. And this is again a 25-year female, and she has a screening test in the form of HPLC which is being done, and it says that her hemoglobin A2 is 5.8%. This hemoglobin A2 is the one which identifies whether this lady is a thalassemia carrier or not. Thalassemia is commonly seen in Marwadis and Punjabis and Bengalis, but in Nagpur we have seen, in other backward communities also, we have seen thalassemia to a very high degree. In Nagpur, there are about 4% chances that during your marriageable youth screening programs, you may come across a thalassemic carrier. And it is equally important that while you are doing a screening of marriageable youth, in addition to sickle cell disease, you must go ahead with screening for thalassemia as well. Now, this is a lady who comes with 5.8 of hemoglobin A2. Hemoglobin A2, each and every laboratory must have their own laboratory control, which states that this is the range in which their A2 for normal controls had given these results. Like suppose in IGMC, if we had tested 20 normal females in a particular age group, then for those 20 normal females, if our hemoglobin A2 falls within the range of 4, then we would say that our normal level of hemoglobin A2 is 4%. If it goes above that, we are going to label that particular case as a case of thalassemia minor. So each and every laboratory must have their own value. So what Neelam said, 3.5% of hemoglobin A2 must be true for their laboratory controls. What we are saying as hemoglobin 4 for a particular group of patients is true for our group of controls that we have tested. So we must know what are the control values initially for us, and then if you compare the control values with your patient's values, you know. So now if you are doing your test with SRL laboratories, they would say that their control ranges somewhere between 3.5 to 3.7. If it goes anything above 3.7, then you would report that this is a high hemoglobin A2, and you should report this as a case of thalassemia minor. And if this lady comes to you with pregnancy, then immediately after that, the next thing would be that test the husband also for presence of a gene for thalassemia. If both are thalassemia carriers, then avoid a birth of thalassemia major child in the next generation by doing a prenatal diagnostic test. So for thalassemia also, a screening test has to be done. If the lady turns out to be positive, husband needs to be tested, and immediately prenatal diagnosis has to be offered. A counselor has to be present for counseling of such pregnant ladies and the couple, when they come during their first ANC visit, because it is a very difficult decision to make for this particular couple. The lady is pregnant for the first time, and then naturally if you tell her that we will have to terminate this particular pregnancy, then it becomes very painful for the couple to accept this decision. And so it is very important that we convince these parents that what are the problems if we go ahead with delivering the child without even doing the prenatal diagnosis. So a high suspicion index, if a lady comes to you and she says she is a Marwadi lady, she is pregnant, immediately she has to have a prenatal, she has to have a screening for both sickle cell disease, thalassemia, and hemoglobinopathies to be ruled out. Unless and until we do that, we should not go ahead with any of the tests as far as central India is concerned. Okay. I have case number 4. This is again a 24 years Kunbi female. This is a female from other backward community. She is pregnant. She comes to you in the first trimester of pregnancy, and her hemoglobin is 3.4%. Now, what should we do in such cases? And my laboratory data says that my control value is 4%, and this lady is coming to you with 3.4%. Immediately, without releasing her report as normal, what we must do is, if hemoglobin A2 has come low, in that particular instance, one has to rule out iron deficiency anemia. As it is, iron deficiency anemia, this nutritional anemia is very common amongst our population, whether it is control population or whether it is a hemoglobinopathy population. When I say hemoglobinopathy, it involves both sickle as well as thalassemia. So whether it is a control population or whether it is our hemoglobinopathy population, iron deficiency anemia is very common amongst pregnant ladies. And if the hemoglobin A2 comes low, in that particular case, that means this is a borderline hemoglobin A2. And so we must find out whether this borderline hemoglobin A2 or whether this is borderline low hemoglobin A2 is on account of iron deficiency anemia. In iron deficiency anemia, hemoglobin A2 is low. So before doing anything else, one has to go ahead with iron studies, get her iron studies done, serum iron, serum ferritin, find out her CBC, find out her RBC indices. If they fit into the thalassaemic indices where MCV, MCH is very low, in that particular situation, find out her serum iron and serum ferritin. If she has iron deficiency, treat her iron deficiency for 3 months. And then after treatment, again repeat A2 before labeling her as normal for A2. So repeat her A2 after 3 months and then find out what is the A2 level, and then only you can label her as thalassemia carrier or otherwise. So any lady who has a borderline low hemoglobin A2, and if her indices are directing towards the thalassaemic indices, in that particular situation, it is better to rule out iron deficiency anemia and then give her a treatment and then send her for prenatal diagnosis. Okay. Do you have any questions as far as these cases are concerned? We had one case.
There are a few questions.
Yeah, sure.
Should we take the questions now?
Yeah, as far as these cases are concerned, we can take them.
Nothing specific to the case. There are general questions in the chat box.
Okay. So we can take them one by one, or you want me to finish remaining 3 cases?
Yeah, you finish the cases, then we'll take the questions.
Okay. Okay. Now I have this 30-year-old female, and she is a symptomatic AS patient. She is AS. Her report says she is AS, but she is symptomatic. And now she is pregnant. So what do we do? You must be getting so many ladies, and I get so many phone calls saying that this is a carrier, but even then she is symptomatic. We get so many calls in government setup as well that they say that this is a lady who has a report which says AS, but even then she is symptomatic. So what should we do? She gets crisis, she has severe anemia, and she even has hip necrosis, but then she is AS. Her HPLC report has shown that she is AS. So what should we do? What happens is that these are some of the very old reports that the patients are carrying with them. Sometimes they are reported in government hospitals, sometimes they are reported in some far off village places or in rural areas. And in that particular situation, this lady doesn't ever disclose, or no one even asks this particular lady that before you underwent these investigations, have you had a chance, have you had anemia, severe anemia, where you were transfused with blood during a period of last 3 months before you could take up these tests. So if a patient of hemoglobinopathy, whether sickle cell disease or thalassemia, if they are transfused within the 3 months of testing for a present time, then in that situation, even an SS patient may give you a report of AS. So even though that particular patient had AS report, that AS report was after she was being transfused, she would just say very casually, yes, I was transfused some 1 or 2 months back. And then we know that these transfused red blood cells, they remain in the circulation for a period of say around 120 days, because that is the normal lifespan of RBCs. Now these donated blood, which contains normal red blood cells, they are circulating in the blood, and they form a part of your hemoglobin report. And if the patient is transfused, if there's normal red blood cells are circulating containing normal hemoglobin A, then in that situation, this transfused SS patient will give you an AS report. And so these patients would be symptomatic, and we would be labeling them as symptomatic AS patients all throughout our life. So one has to find out, one has to be very sure that whatever you are labeling as a symptomatic AS patient is really a symptomatic patient, and he is not a transfused patient who had been reported as AS during that particular time. So in this particular situation, HPLC to be repeated, and one has to find out again what is the situation. There should be a gap of more than 3 months before you are transfused and before you undergo a test for hemoglobinopathies. So this is a take-home message that anytime when you go ahead for testing, you have to hammer this to your patients की अगर तुला blood मिळालेलं आहे का? जर तुला blood मिळालेलं असेल तर आपल्याला थांबावं लागेल. We will have to wait for some more time. If the time does not permit, in that particular situation, if it is going to be a life-saving situation, then patient can be transfused. But if not, in that particular situation, we have to wait and get a confirmed report if we want to find out what is the cause of this symptomatic AS patient. The next case is that what are all those cases and all those hemoglobinopathies which require prenatal diagnosis? Is it only sickle cell disease? Is it only thalassemia that we are concerned with? Or we should think about some other variants as well? We have done a screening of more than 4 lakhs persons. And during that screening, we have not only come across sickle cell disease and thalassemia, but other variant hemoglobins like hemoglobin E and hemoglobin D. They are again very common in our population, in India itself. Durga Puja exhibition, where we carry out our 10-day screening program, we find maximum cases of hemoglobin E, which is very common in eastern part of India, especially in Bengalis. So during Durga Puja exhibition, we get lot of Bengali population visiting their relations in Nagpur. And if we test them there, they turn out to be hemoglobin E. They come to our IGMC laboratory for confirmation, and there we get many E cases. And then these E cases, when they interact with hemoglobin S, we get a combination which is known as hemoglobin S and E, which is a double heterozygous condition, and it behaves like thalassaemic patients, and therefore they require prenatal diagnosis. So is case of hemoglobin S with hemoglobin D. when you have a combination double heterozygous for hemoglobin S and D, even these patients, these category of cases, clinically, they behave and they have symptoms, and as a result of which we need to go ahead with prenatal diagnosis in these cases as well. You may have a combination of sickle cell disease with thalassemia. Sometimes a mother may be sickle carrier, and you may have a father who is a thalassemic carrier. And in this situation, again, there are chances that you will have a sickle thalassemic child, either sickle thalassemia beta positive or beta zero thalassemia. And depending upon the percentage of the globin gens and the hemoglobin A that is present, patient may have either symptoms or he may not have symptoms, but these are the cases which may require prenatal diagnosis. So we have set of 6 cases now, 6 situations where prenatal diagnosis is required in our cases, and that is hemoglobin SS, that is sickle cell disease. We have sickle with thalassemia. We have hemoglobin E with sickle cell disease. We have hemoglobin D with sickle cell disease. Then we may have hemoglobin E with thalassemia, and we may have sickle cell disease with delta beta thalassemia, which is another kind of thalassemia. And in all these cases, since they produce these children who are symptomatic, we need to have prenatal diagnosis in all these situations. Now, where will you get diagnosis of all these cases? Is cellulose acid electrophoresis going to give you an answer? It is favorable, and it is quite cheap methodology, which is very effective, which is accurate, and which is considered to be a gold standard, that is high performance liquid chromatography. And with the sample load that these laboratories are getting from Nagpur and other draining areas, they have subsidized their rates of HPLCs, and as a result of which it is present at it is being offered to patients at a very affordable price. And so as a screening test, if you go ahead with HPLC, especially for diagnosis of variant hemoglobins with sickle cell, then it is advisable, because in that case you get an accurate diagnosis, you get exact percentage of the abnormal hemoglobins that is present, and subsequently when you are managing these patients, then that would again help you when patients are being put on hydroxyurea, and where you need to have a repeated and follow-up fetal hemoglobin estimations. So HPLC is a gold standard. It's a relatively cheaper method, and it is a confirmatory test which is being now done. Sometimes even with HPLC, it becomes difficult to diagnose patients with hemoglobinopathies, because the percentage of hemoglobin is less in them, and then we have to rely on other biological tests, and sometimes we even do sickling slide test to find out कि अरे सिकल है कि नहीं है इसमें, अगर percentage इसका सिकल hemoglobin का कम आया है. So we do even the slide test to find out the presence of sickle test, and this usually happens if there is associated alpha thalassemia with sickle cell disease. So one has to always remember, even if you do sickle cell disease, even if you do HPLC, even if you get a very low percentage of sickle hemoglobin in HPLC, then in that case, you have to find out whether this particular patient has associated alpha thalassemia or not. And then sometimes you have to go back and do a simple slide test and find out कि the patient के cells sickle हो रहे हैं कि नहीं हो रहे. So the take-home message here is no single test is confirmatory. You have to have a battery of tests available. You must know the history of the patient. You must know what are other family members in the who are suffering or who have undergone any treatment modality for either sickle cell disease or thalassemia, and then only patient should be given a diagnosis, and then only he should be offered treatment. And last but not the least is this pregnant woman. Now she has undergone prenatal diagnosis. We for sure know that even though both the parents are sickle cell carriers or thalassemic carriers, a child is born. And now we want to know at birth itself whether this child is having any hemoglobinopathy or not. And so what is the best answer to this particular couple? That we will test the newborn baby for presence of hemoglobinopathy. It is very simple for sickle cell disease, but then to diagnose thalassemia at birth, it is not possible unless and until you know the mutation, DNA studies, and you know the mutation. But for sickle cell disease, newborn screening programs are most effective. They are being done in all developing countries, and it is very unfortunate and sad that none of the government setups, neither in the private setups, barring few, newborn screening is being done to find out the sickle cell disease child at birth. What is the advantage of giving newborn screening? First of all, in the first place, whether it is safe or not, it is 100% safe. It is a non-invasive method. What do we do with this? You just take a heel prick and just 5 microliter of blood is being taken, nothing more than that. And then you find out whether this child has sickle cell disease or not. This child, if turns out to be sickle cell disease, we have battery of tests which are available at this moment. Even HPLC can be used. Even you have some point of care test systems which detect sickle cell disease within 10 minutes. It is not that costly. And then you know that the child is sickle cell disease. The advantage is that immediately after 3 months, the child will be put in comprehensive health plan. What does it mean? That he will be started with prophylactic antibiotics. Why do we do that? Because we know that bacterial infections are very common in first few years of life, and which could be life threatening. And we want to give, at least we never wanted a child to be born, but if it is born, then we want to give a quality life to this particular burden. And if that is to be done, then one has to go ahead with newborn screening. And it is the setup, it is the gynecologist and the pediatrician who have to convince the parents to go ahead with newborn screening programs. If they are not going ahead with newborn screening programs, then they are missing the chance of detecting their child to find out whether he has or she has sickle cell disease or not. So newborn screening program has to be taken up by the pediatricians as well as the gynecologist. And this is my sincere request to you all, that concentrate on ANC testing, concentrate on husband's testing if the wife turns out to be positive. Go ahead with prenatal diagnosis, do lot of publicity for prenatal diagnosis instead of bone marrow transplantation and gene replacement therapy. Patients come to us for bone marrow transplant, but they don't want to go ahead with prenatal diagnosis. So please help us spread this awareness and message about prenatal diagnosis. After prenatal diagnosis, if the child is born, then in that situation, do newborn screening programs. It is safe. It does not give rise to any complication. And all developing countries, they are doing and advocating newborn screening program and decreasing the morbidity and mortality in our children. So at least give them a quality life. Apart from all these medications, blood transfusions, and the rest of the treatments which are newly available now for this, one more important thing is that when these children are born in the society has to change their approach towards them. Even now, we are not disclosing the sickle cell status of a girl child. She does not disclose it until she gets married, and it gets detected only when she is pregnant. And then lot of divorce cases have come to us, have been reported with us, that now since they have deceived us, now we are not going to go ahead with this marriage, and then they file a suit for the divorce. It is very painful for this young mother. And so parents have to take the responsibility of disclosing the status of sickle or thalassemia to the prospective groom. If they do not do this, then their child is going to suffer because of not disclosing this report to the other side. Another important thing is, before we end this, we must know something about bone marrow transplantation and gene editing therapy, because they are going to be the curative modalities of treatment. Bone marrow transplantation has been repeatedly done in the sickle cell disease patients, but because of the underlying pathology, compared to thalassemia, the results with sickle cell disease are not that encouraging. But with newer treatment modalities, now with the Novartis coming up with a new drug and hydroxyurea giving relief to these patients, because patients once they are counseled, they would go not for bone marrow transplant, but for these pharmacologic modalities of treatment. Why? Because even if it is a bone marrow transplantation, even if only you are replacing the bone marrow cells, but then the patients are going to be immunocompromised, they are going to be radiated, and that again, the complications of immunocompromisation and radiation are there. Patients have to be put on cytotoxic drugs, and again, it is very costly. As against this, if you give them a choice of hydroxyurea and the new drug, then they would go ahead with these two modalities of treatment. Gene editing, our first patient of 32 years old female, a mother of 3, she has undergone gene editing with CRISPR methodology, and she is well after 1 year of treatment. What do we do even in this? With both hydroxyurea as well as with gene editing, what we are doing is we are trying to increase the level of fetal hemoglobin. And the good news for our patients is that you already have a very high level of fetal hemoglobin. And so if you are lucky, you will fall into that category where even though you are SS, you may not have that severe symptoms. So there is a good hope for all our sickle cell disease patients. Apart from that, we all should be ready to give our patients psychosocial support. Patients many a times go into depression, and as a result of which it is the responsibility of the society, the parents, the community leaders, the religious leaders, and the politicians to give and take care of the psychosocial aspect of our sickle cell disease patients. Then only we will achieve the results that we expect from this hemoglobinopathy community. Thank you so much, and I will be happy to answer a few questions.
Thank you so much, Shrikhande madam. This was a real eye-opening session. I would say we really, eyes have opened big and wide. There were so many things that I think gynecologists really weren't doing, just out of pure ignorance. So thank you for this really valuable talk. Purvar madam has been facing some network issues. So I would invite comments from Vinky sir after madam's talk, please.
Thank you, Dr. Vaidya. I think a wonderful presentation, and everything has been covered by Shrikhande madam. A few questions I could see on a chat box. One of the question was when these patients get reservation in jobs. So let me tell you that these patients of thalassemia and sickle cell disease are being included now in a disability bill. So they are getting all the benefits which a disabled person is getting. But unfortunately, there are few illnesses which have been kept away from the jobs, government jobs. They are getting reservation in education. 5% reservation in education they are already getting. But for the jobs, they are actually not at present. So few of the national associations are working together, and they have given representation to the Social and Justice Ministry as well as to the Health Ministry to include these diseases in for the government jobs.
Yes.
Another question was, I think, was there. I could see in the chat box. How to differentiate thalassemia major and minor from the HPL? I think that is a question which Shrikhande madam can answer. But we all know that she has already told that for thalassemia minor, the HPLC report, A2 quantitation we have to do, and if it is more than 3.5, we call it as minor, and for the major we get high hemoglobin F. So that is how overall the presentation was excellent, and I think this particular topic of thalassemia and sickle cell, and we can say hemoglobinopathy, has got an utmost important as far as the obstetricians are concerned. So I'm sure that this association of obstetricians and gynecologists will definitely take this as a project, and we hope that in future we will see our association in Nagpur is going to have something which will definitely be a landmark and will show a path for other gynec and obst associations for the work.
Surely, sir. Surely. Thank you, sir. Vidya ma'am has to.
Yes,
leave,
as far as thalassemia major and thal minor is concerned, First and foremost, thal minor is an asymptomatic case. They will not be presenting with any symptoms, whereas thalassemia major clinically would be a transfusion dependent anemia. So you would get an information that every 15 days, madam, iska hemoglobin bahut drop ho jata hai, and unless and until he is transfused, he cannot survive. It's a severe hemoglobin, it's a severe hemolytic disease, and you see a particular facial appearance of these thalassemic patients, and they come to you with frontal bossing and maxillary prominence, and then they have stunted growth. Apart from that, when the laboratory investigations are being done, they would show you severe degree of anemia, and in HPLC, they would have fetal hemoglobin to an extent of 95% or so. Whereas for thalassemia minor, it is only hemoglobin A2 which is raised, and fetal hemoglobin may not be raised to an extent that you get in thalassemia major. It would be raised, say, between 5 to 9% only. So when fetal hemoglobin is that high, one has to think of, and when it fits into the clinical symptomatology, thalassemia major should be considered.
Right. Should I quickly take a few questions, ma'am?
Yes, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the first question is hydroxyurea safe in pregnancy?
No, hydroxyurea, when you decide to get pregnant itself, 3 months before that, you have to stop. So this is a decision which is being taken in consultation with your physician, your husband, and your family. You are deciding to get pregnant, you stop hydroxyurea, and after 3 months, you should try to conceive.
Right.
It is not safe during pregnancy, neither when you are breastfeeding your child.
Right. Social stigma and cost of PND is preventing the patients from doing these tests and probably disclosing the results. What's the way out?
It is only awareness. It is only awareness programs. And secondly, we had started with prenatal diagnosis in the first year that we started. We got only 1 or 2 cases per year, but continuous hammering, and then the problems that these children, then when they are born, and the parents, when they see their children suffering, it is only then that they understand the importance of prenatal diagnosis. So it is only awareness and education which is going to give us some relief as far as prenatal diagnosis is concerned.
Absolutely. The many districts of Vidarbha affected sickle cell diseases. They're affected with sickle cell disease. Please do mandatory sickle test to all ANC patients, just like HIV, HBsAg. Can we do something like that? Can it be made mandatory?
Yes, we had sent this proposal to the government, but then as far as sickle cell disease is concerned and hemoglobinopathies are concerned, government never used that mandatory screening clause. So it is best known to the politicians why they do not want to make it mandatory. But then at the same time, the GR is issued which says that between 0 to 30, all must get screened.
Correct. Can newborn screening be done on cord blood?
See, newborn screening is done with HPLC. That is the most reliable method to get newborn screening done. If you are doing it on cord blood, then Wharton's jelly interferes with the methodal test, and as a result of which it is safe to use heel prick blood rather than cord blood.
Yes. What is the exact screening test for sickle cell and thal hemoglobinopathies that can be offered to an ANC mother in the first trimester? Can we offer